What's up, agency owners? Jason Swenk here with another episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass, a podcast dedicated to the digital agency owner that's wanting to grow and scale faster and avoid some of the mistakes or failures, which we're going to actually talk about today on with this guest. We're going to talk about why is failure good and what you need to do about it and how to embrace it. So let's go ahead and jump into the show. Hey, Justin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell us who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, my name's Justin Skinner, a simple Midwest kid from Springfield, Missouri. So grew up on a dairy farm here in the country, and both my grandparents were dairy farmers. So learned, how to work from an early age and how to do work you didn't want to do. So that kind of led to sports. Wound up playing baseball through high school and college, and then that led to a brief career in worked with a publisher, worked with a graphic design company, and then that led to entrepreneurship. And my wife and I started our own business about a decade ago, and then full circle, we are now full-time investors and into real estate, and just wrote a book and have the podcast. And so each day looks pretty different, but it's pretty fun.
Awesome. So the most important question of the podcast is, have you ever gone cow tipping?
Oh, that is a great question. I have I have never technically gone cow tipping, even though we talked about it. I don't think it's a thing, but I have. I don't know if I should admit this. I will though. When we grew up, we had tons of walnut trees. So at night, we would go out and we would throw walnuts at cows and make them run around, and that was our version of cow tipping.
Poor cows.
Per cow. I know. But yeah, that was our version of cow tipping.
Peter's going to be tracking you down now.
I know. It's just part of my upbringing. I gotta embrace it.
We used to get the cherries or there was like cherry apples, and we would throw it at cars going
Yep.
by. Like the
Yeah.
stupid stuff we would do as kids.
Yep.
But
No, I hear you. I had another story with apples, same thing, and I threw it at someone. We were having an apple fight, and I threw it and hit someone in the mouth and thought I knocked their teeth out. So I don't throw apples anymore. That was my failure and lesson learned.
there you go. Well, let's
Yeah.
go ahead and get into it because obviously this episode's not about cow tipping. Even though I was like,
Yeah.
that kind of be a good first question, I guess. It just came to me.
I love
But
it.
let's talk about failure, like because I feel that a lot of, especially in the agency business, there's failure after failure after failure. And I was chatting with an agency owner over chat a couple weeks ago, and he was just at a point where he was like, I fucking hate it. I can't do it anymore. And then he started asking people about, selling his agency. And, his agency was only making a couple $100,000. It just wasn't worth a lot. And he's just kind of, I could sense, because I remember being there, he was just like, there's no way out. Like, I've just dug this hole. I might as well lay there and die.
Yeah. Yeah, that's brutal. I think for us, maybe the little different part for us was when we bill and early on, my wife were luckily on the same page. We never wanted to grow with employees. And so we would see, other agencies that would have a $10 million gross income and they would be making, $100,000 in profit. And it just didn't make sense to us. So we wanted to grow based on contract workers, and that was something we did. And we wound up having one employee at one time, and he was awesome. We loved it. We just never added any more beyond that. But it really allowed us to be flexible. Allowed us to be flexible job to job. And if we didn't have the work coming in, then we didn't have to, carry employees. And I know there's different ways to look at that. And but for us, it really worked, and it allowed us to really see our bottom line and know what we are going to make per project, and we could really project out our earnings for the year. So that was something we learned early on, that honestly I think we've carried on into any business that we've done since.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. That's why I love interviewing people on the show. Is there's so many different ways to build the business that fits you, and going forward. What Tell us a little bit about what are some failures and lessons learned that got you, and how'd you get through it? That
Yeah.
might relate to some of the audience members.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest failures for me was when we had the employee, which he was actually a family member. He's a cousin. I still love him. I see him to this day. But for me, a frustrating part, I have this different, maybe work ethic or attitude where you come in and then you're managing someone, you're managing someone's time, and for me it was hard because I would just come in and in my mind I'm structured. I just want to sit down and work. And when we hired him, he would say he was amazing in this way that he would do anything you ask him to do, but there were times where he would sit around because I hadn't instructed him what to do, and that was frustrating for me. I didn't understand how it worked early on. And so that led to, me coming in and I would make less eye contact or I would, have bad body language towards him and he could feel that. And I know my wife was there, she could feel it too. That was something I really had to work through early on, how to I guess get past that. Making him feel disappointed because he was a hard worker and I mean like I said he did anything that we asked him to do and he did it with excellence. But I had to learn how to treat people who are not exactly built like me in a very uplifting and respectful way instead of just being disappointed in them. Because that feeling of disappointment, especially to a boss or a spouse or whatever it is powerful, and it doesn't usually affect you in a positive way. Usually, it's pretty negative. So that was a big lesson I learned was how to treat an employee, and I say employee, a family member, because it does affect everything. Like he was family, and you hear all the time it's hard to work with family. But I think it was a really good lesson for me how to give instruction and how to encourage in a way in a working environment to hopefully bring about positive work and positive change.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about. I mean, I know looking back, I probably went through very similar ways, right? You're like, well, I'm assuming you should know what you need to do, right? Because when you
Yeah.
hire someone, you got to think about why do you hire someone? As I'm about to sneeze on camera, right? Um, that would be a really good screenshot, right? Um,
I love it.
but as you hire someone, you're trying to what? You're trying to save your time.
Yeah.
And if you're constantly needs to figure out giving orders and someone following your direction, well, that actually adds probably some time. And even in this business, I've relearned it because I remember when I would bring people in, I was kind of very similar. I'm like, well, you're a big boy and girl, like go figure it out. Like this is the goal, the company, go do it. And what I realized is I needed to put someone between me because I don't have the patience for that. Like that was my failure, right? I needed to put someone between to manage the task doers, right? And then the people between me are the what I call like, and I think there's a book out there called Who or what is it? Who, not what, or how,
Yeah.
or
Who not
something
how,
like that.
yeah.
There you go, right? It's
Yeah.
like I rather figure out the who and then let them figure out the how. But like you were saying, maybe your cousin wasn't the how person. He was just the person that could go do, right? Is that
Yeah.
what you kind of feel?
For sure, yeah, and for me, I thought to me, I thought it was coming from a positive perspective, like, "Hey, I'm encouraging him, I'm gonna empower him to be independent and say, 'Hey, I just want you to do what you feel led to do,'" when in reality, it just almost suffocated him because he had too many choices because there were so many things he could do during the day. So I think in the end, it made me better because I realized I had to be better myself, better organized, and then give direction in a clear way. Because for a while, again, yeah, I just tried to push towards that empowering, like, you know what, you're a big boy, you can do these things, I believe in you, and it really didn't help, even though that might have helped me. What I realized was everyone is different, and that's the hard part about having an organization is you have to treat individuals differently. It's not this like just mold for everyone, and that's the tricky part.
Yeah. The other thing that's very similar on my story is I remember one time I was interviewing a bunch of people for a project manager job at the agency. And a project manager, and I was used to doing the project management job for many, many years, and I hated it. Like I didn't want to talk to the clients. I didn't want to be the guy that kept everything on timeline and a schedule and followed procedure, all that kind of stuff. So I remember interviewing a couple people, and I told them, I said, "Hey, do this job for 2 years, and then you'll move up, and you'll move up. Like this job right now, just like." And I'm always one to undersell everything because I never want to paint sunshine and rainbows, and then they come in. But I painted the picture really bad of like this is the worst job like role ever because it was the worst role for me. And what I didn't realize was there's a lot of people that never wanted to move up. They loved
Yeah.
this. They loved following instructions. Like when I get instructions and I build stuff, I don't use instructions and I always have like leftover parts. I'm like, I'm more efficient.
Yep.
Then it falls apart.
Exactly, yeah. No, I love that point. Yeah, it's kinda crazy because like you said, the jobs that I think and I this resonates with me big time. The jobs that I think are boring or I can't stand doing, there's someone out there that loves it. And so for me to inject my enthusiasm, for these jobs into someone else isn't fair to them. So again, it was another just lesson of, we're all different and different people have different strengths and what they kinda lean into. So I really try and keep that in mind going forward, but there are times where I'm still really bad at it, and I just for some reason, I have blurry vision and I don't see it, and then I step back a week later, I'm like, "Oh, I screwed up again." I like, that was a clear path of someone was just different and they settled into that role or they were perfect for it and I didn't see it. So, definitely something I'm still working on.
What's your biggest failure that turned into your biggest success?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Jason. So, I've had several, and I've shared several failures, through the last several months. But I would say the biggest one that led is just my dream to play baseball, and I'll keep it brief. But from the time that I was like 2, I just had this dream to play professional baseball, and I played in high school and had some success, and the same in college, and I had a lot of friends and teammates and guys I played against. I wound up getting drafted and playing professionally, so I just thought that's where my life was headed. Well, long story short, wound up on draft day. I had a draft ID and was supposed to get drafted, and for some reason, it just didn't happen. So, wound up not getting drafted, and it was pretty crushing. Like all these dreams, all these years I had invested, just didn't happen. But for some reason, I had this peace to just say no and walk away and not keep chasing it, which some guys do and they still have success, and I love it. I love those stories. But for some reason, for me, it just wasn't in the cards, and I had a peace about it. But I to this day, if I look back and I see how my life is kind of intertwined, I say definitely. I probably wouldn't be an author. I probably wouldn't, have real estate, or we wouldn't have run a business with my wife, which is something I've cherished for a decade now to be able to work with her. So I would say that was the biggest failure at the time where I'm like, man, where is my identity? How am I going to get through this? Who am I apart from, my career in baseball to where I am today? I think it's been a drastic change that I couldn't see at the time, but it's led to so many opportunities and relationships nowadays that I'm so grateful that's how it played out.
Yeah, I had a very similar story. I grew up playing tennis, and I played in.
Oh, awesome.
So I was cut from the freshman team, and it really pissed me off.
Yeah.
And I came back, and I was like the low man on the totem pole that was still on varsity, like at number 5, like only 1 through 5 play. And then I really pushed through. In senior or junior and senior year, I never lost and got a scholarship and went to play in college. And my whole goal was to get to the U.S. Open and play professionally. And we played some professional tournaments, but I realized that was very lonely and it was a very hard life. And unless you could make it to, the top 50, which I just knew mentally I just wasn't there. Um, go do other things, and that was, it relates. That relates to me,
Yeah.
and I always identified with myself before then as a tennis player, and then when I owned an agency, I always identified being an agency owner. So then when I sold the agency, I was like, I have no identity left. And I think a lot of people listening, they think their identity is an agency owner or, this marketer that, because most agency owners are accidental, right? Like we knew how to do
Yeah.
something cool and someone gave us money and we're like, okay, let's build the team, right? And so like our identity is all lost in that. But the quicker you feel, you figure that, because I think that's a failure, to
Yeah.
identify with what you do rather than who you are. Then you can make better decisions. Because look, sometimes you have an agency, and if you're not good at it, you don't like it, like you should close it up.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
go do something else. It's kind of like what we did
Yeah.
with you did with baseball, I did with tennis. Like, all right, I'll
Yeah.
play tennis once a year now.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's something I kinda talked about in the beginning of my book that maybe I've had more clarity in the past couple of years on, but I think overall, I came to the realization that I just wanna be a resource no matter what I was in or what I was running, whether it be, real estate or Airbnbs or sports, or I just wanna be a resource for others, and I think that allows that fluidity to flow in and out between whatever you're doing. Because to me, part of the spice of life sometimes is pivoting. And like you said, if you don't enjoy what you're doing and you're running an agency and you're just like, man, this is like draining every ounce of energy, there's nothing wrong with pivoting, but you just need to take that mindset of being a resource and then pivot into something else where you're, enjoying it, and you don't dread waking up on Mondays and having to drudge into work and go from there. But that helped me a lot. No matter what I'm doing, I just want to be a resource for others, and it just seems to flow into whatever I do.
You must have read the about page, or we're just brothers from another mother, because our whole why is being a resource I wish I had when I was running my agency. Um,
I
and,
love it.
and that's how we always make all our decisions, whether, and that's how my team calls me out when I make bad
Yeah.
decisions. They're like, is this a resource? I was like, yes, it is. Like, even
Yep.
though I don't like that person.
Yep. No, that's a good mindset to have. I think and so that's why you have a team too, so they can call you out on those things.
That's right. Well, this has all been amazing, Justin. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the audience? And then we'll tell them where they can actually go check out the book.
Yeah, no, I think this has been great, by the way, but I actually want to flip it around on you. Um, I want to get your thoughts on pickleball because you're a tennis player. I still play tennis like every other week. I love playing tennis, but my wife is obsessed with pickleball right now. What are your thoughts on pickleball with your tennis background?
So I've never played pickleball.
Okay.
Um, I just got back from Florida. That's where I grew up. And I played with my best friends there that I grew up playing tennis with. And they started telling me about pickleball. And I was like, man, you don't have to move around. Like, you can sit there and just smack the shit out of the ball. I was like, we could be the number one players in the world for pickleball. So, and there's, because whenever I'd go into like the gym to work out, I'd see these older people playing pickleball, like, 80-year-olds. And I'm like, man, like,
Yeah.
really? Um, I don't know. Like, I I think if I got into it, I'd probably be too competitive and kill some old person. Uh, so I don't know.
Well, if it makes you feel better, that's how I felt too. And we were actually taught a few years ago by a 70-year-old woman who it was a very humbling moment for me coming from, athletic background. Well, she like kicked our butts the first game. And I'm like, this is dumb. This is a really dumb sport.
That's
Like,
awesome.
but I think that's the beauty of it, is that basically there's a level playing field, but then also I guarantee you would pick it up really quickly, and then you would settle into finding people that are similar skill levels. But I think you should give it a try. I think you'd enjoy it.
I,
So you're right.
I
You can smack it and not worry about pelting 70-year-old people, because I've done it, and sometimes they're just asking for it.
well, as
maybe
long as
maybe I
my
shouldn't say that out loud.
well, I should probably play a pickleball with my HOA, who I can't stand. That would
Yes.
probably
Yeah.
be really enjoyable. But I remember, going back to, I remember when I was 17 and my tennis pro was like, hey, I want you to play with this one guy. And maybe the guy was 60 at the time, white beard, white hair, he was kind of hunched over a little bit. I'm like, why am I going to play with this guy? He tore me up. Later, I learned that um, he was like 100 in the world, and a long time
Wow.
ago. And I was like, I'll never judge a book by its cover. Like, that was
Yep.
another failure in my part.
Yep, and that's the world of pickleball. Like, you see people are like, "There's no way they can do anything," and they are very good at pickleball, so it is a very humbling, and you cannot judge a book by any means, so, yeah,
All
maybe we can
right.
play at some point
I'm
too.
gonna I'm gonna go sign up for some pickleball league and
Good, good.
probably throw it in my back and have the 80-year-olds carry me off the court, and
Exactly,
that would
another
be
humbling moment.
fun. Oh well. Uh,
That'd be good.
what's the website people can go and check out the book, or where can they get the book, and what's it called?
Yeah, yeah, the book's called The Professional or Professional Failure, and then, you can go to www.professional-failure.com, and I've got the link to Audible version, the podcast links, and then a little blog going there as well, so you can find all my social media channels there. It's at Justin C. Skinner, and, yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions or I can help with anything.
When you've played too much pickleball with older people, when you say a URL with www.
I know. I know. I have, like I always like to joke that my parents, are maybe a little less tech, literate than some people, so I like to harness, like, my old spirit, and that's how I harness some of it is www. I just can't get over it. I can't get past it. I have to do it, so
I always, you're the first young person or younger person to say WW on the show. Like usually it's the people that I kind of grew up with, because
Yeah,
when the websites came out, like, I started my agency in 99. So it was all WW. And so I
yeah,
could always tell when people have been in the game a long time because they start off with WWW. I'm like, we don't need that anymore.
yeah. I will wear that as a badge of honor, so
Awesome. All right. Well, go check out the www website.
I love it. Well, Jason, this has been awesome. Thank you very much for having me.
yeah,
Appreciate the
definitely.
opportunity.
Yep, definitely. Thanks for coming on. And for everyone that enjoyed this episode, make sure you go check out the book, and make sure you subscribe, hit that little bell button or whatever device you're listening to so you never miss out on another episode. And if you guys want to be around amazing agency owners on a consistent basis where we can see the things that you might not be able to see, and go, hey, that's a good failure for you, or hey, you might need to switch or pivot, just so you can get to the point in life where you have more freedom and more opportunity in your agency and your personal growth and all that kind of stuff. Love to invite you guys to go check out www.digitalagency. No, I'm just kidding. Just go to digitalagencyelite.com. And until next time, have a swank day.